All right, so it looks like we have enough voting members by a roll call. Let me know here, please. Justin DeMarco. Did not see Justin. Krista Silva.
Yes.
Greg Johnson.
Yes.
Mary Brandley. Oh, Greg, you're here? Okay.
Yep.
Mary Brandley.
Yes.
Hillary Griffiths. Brian.
Yes.
Mike Stevens. I didn't see him. Rob Rouleau. I did not see Rob. Jennifer.
Mike Stevens just joined.
Okay.
I'm here,
Jennifer?
Jerry.
All right, thank you. Wayne?
Yep.
I saw you. I'm here. Mark Anderson.
Here.
Thank you. Anthony.
Here.
Matthew.
Here.
Nick.
Here.
Ken.
Here.
Josh. Is Charles Gabron here by any chance tonight? Charles on? Rob Savoy on? Katie Moore on? And Gavin Stone, is he on? No? Okay. Well, we have a majority. We're good to go. Let me read the governor's epitaph and then we'll crank it up. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, signed into law by Governor Healy on March 29th, 2023, several pandemic-related relief provisions suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A, Section 20, were further extended until March 31st, 2025. All members of the public are invited to join the meeting virtually, either by computer or phone, as noted below. If you're joining virtually, video and audio will be turned off for the public participants unless otherwise stipulated by the chair. Okay, Phil, it's your meeting, and I think I have the first item.
Yeah.
I do. So Phil sent out the meeting minutes. Pauline has them. And has everybody had time to review the meeting minutes from the, November 13th building committee meeting? And does anybody have any edits? I'm not seeing, I can only see a few faces here, but I don't see or hear anything. So via roll call, I'm going to go for approval of the minutes of the November 13th meeting. Justin, not here. Krista Silva.
Yes.
Greg Johnson.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
Hillary's not here. Brian.
Yes.
Mike Stevens. Somebody said you were here.
Yes.
Ah, good. Rob, not here. Jennifer.
Yes.
Wayne.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mark Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you. Anthony.
Yes.
Matthew.
Yes.
Nick.
Yes.
Ken.
Abstain.
Oh,
I wasn't here that day.
I remember that. All right, that's fine. Josh is not on. Josh joined? Did not. Okay, that's all the voting members. Passed unanimously. Go ahead, Phil. You got it.
Thanks, Jerry. The next agenda item is Colliers and MVG DD to close out proposals, review and vote. So we sent those out about a week or so ago. This is the whole topic of we've been working under a feasibility study contract, Colliers and the OPM feasibility study contract, Mount Vernon Group and their designer feasibility study contract. So next step now is to execute an amendment to those existing contracts to get us from design development through project closeout. So for Colliers, DD to close out amendment proposal, it's in the dollar amount. So what we carried in the budget, so when I say budget, the total project budget that we submitted to MSBA via our schematic design submission, and ultimately what we executed with them through the project scope and budget agreement, as well as now transitioning into the project funding agreement. So the budget carried for OPM services to get through design development through project closeout is the $2,143,075. That includes taking the remaining 51.4K out of the feasibility study OPM line item and doing a budget revision request with MSBA and kind of transferring that into the DD to closeout services. And what we submitted for a proposal is essentially the same amount, $2,143,075. And the contract terms is no different than the OPM feasibility study contract terms. It's a not to exceed fee, billed on an hourly basis every month. Again, similar to the feasibility study OPM contract. And then what Mount Vernon Group submitted. So what we have carried for a designer budget in the budget with MSBA to get through design development through project closeout is the $6,190,000. What was submitted from Mount Vernon Group and the team is the $6,190,000. And the kind of payment arrangement on that is no different than the designer feasibility study contract. It's a lump sum fee billed per a billing schedule, which was part of their DD to closeout proposal. Are there any questions on the two proposals? Nick, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I think it goes for both of them. There were some requirements for Eversource to have a 1-year check back. Is that sort of like very low lifting, not really needs to be explained in here? Because I think the dates on these end like more in the standard closeout 6, 10 months, whatever it is. So those okay to have like a callback for you guys to come back for one more thing?
100%, yeah. And the truth is that quote unquote 1-year callback, the truth is we'll still be kind of dealing with MSBA closeout process, like I've kind of spoken about. The MSBA closeout process, generally speaking, takes about a year post occupancy. So yes, we will be part of that. Yep.
Yeah. So the dates on here about when we finish and when we go to the last phase, they're a little like happier, maybe good luck dates. But like you said, it'll probably take a year. Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
For both of you guys, is there a thing I've had to deal with in contracts before as the architect is like if something happens, can some other architect pick up where the drawings are and continue forward? Is that sort of baked in? I know it's not really, this isn't a full contract, I don't think. Is that something the MSBA takes into account for changing designers if you had to, if some sort of thing happens?
Nick, I've never been asked that question. So what I can say is, the designer contract, no different than the OPM contract, is a MSBA contract template, if you will, or form that we're adopting through the MSBA process. I don't know that there's language in the designer contract that speaks to that topic. I think I saw. Did I see Frank?
Yeah,
Chris. Frank or Chris, you guys want to speak to that? I haven't encountered that in any of my project experience.
No, I mean, but there's a question. There was an architect a few years ago that had a project and decided to close his doors. But that was before they started work, so they were actually were able to award it to the second bidder, the second proposal. But I haven't heard of any. I mean, what kind of circumstance would you envision, Nick?
Oh, I have no idea. I haven't done a school. I just know there was language like that when I used to deal with mass housing. And they were like, if something happens to the job, mass housing can take control and we can use the drawings to get somebody else to finish said project. And I was like, what?
Yeah,
I just didn't know if that's something was...
to protect the owner, we have, liability insurance. So if something goes wrong, we have up to $5 million per claim, in our liability insurance. But you're saying for some reason the architect cannot complete the work. Yeah, I'm sure they would work out something. I mean, it doesn't seem very likely. I don't know of any instance where that's actually happened that I can think of.
Yeah, one thing I would add, Nick, is I do believe there's language in there relative to ownership, the owner having ownership of the design docs.
Right.
So that kind of speaks to that topic you just brought up.
Having owner. I was thinking about, yeah.
Yeah, so that language, yes, that's a very typical designer contract language, and that's in there, yes.
Okay. Last thing small, as-built, O&M manuals, those kind of things at the end of the job, will those get compiled and reviewed by MVG, sorry?
Yes.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, good.
And all our consultants.
You and the umbrella, I assume.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we do
Like-
what's called a conformance set after the bid is awarded, and that takes into account any addenda that took place during the bid period, any in other words, they have separate items that modify the documents. All those are conformed into a set where it's just one document, and that's the one that carries through and will be the format for the as-built as well.
Great. And the rest of the project history stuff, submittals and RFIs and the rest of the things
Right.
that end up taking 2 years of our lives to look at. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay. That was my couple things. Thank you.
Mary?
Yeah, so under the Colliers one for you, Phil, when we talk about I think it was on page 10 about change orders up to 100,000, or they were pretty huge amounts. My concern is that when we go out to bid, one of the things that we are required to do, I guess, by the MSBA is to get the cheapest, as long as they're qualified. But my concern is the cheapest guy might say yes, and then all of a sudden he's doing change order, and he's getting it up, if we can do it by 100,000s and that, to get them up, much higher. Is that something that happens, or it just worried me that we're talking $100,000 change orders?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're referring to when you bring up $100,000 change orders, but so it sounded like you were talking about the review of the low qualified GC bidder.
Correct.
And so what that process is going to look like, we're going to have a contractor pre-qual, so that's GCs, that's filed subs, general contractors and filed subs. And once that's completed, only the pre-qualified general contractors can bid on the project. Only the pre-qualified filed subcontractors can bid. Once the bidding is complete through both of those processes, and we have a low bidder, we then will do like a final kind of due diligence reference check to understand if there's any unfavorable reference checks for the low GC bidder. We'll present those findings to you all, and we'll kind of go through the process. Okay, so they're low by $1 million. Is that $1 million savings worth it? Or based off of this last few reference checks we got, it sounds like it's not worth it. Let's go with the second bidder. So we'll go through that. We'll guide that process and kind of provide a recommendation, if you will, to you all. But it'll be your vote as to which GC we want to go with. But ultimately, in terms of OPM services, so that's kind of the pre-qual and bidding process. And then during construction, it's our responsibility to review every single proposal change order submitted, making sure it's actually a legitimate change order, right? And not, the scope isn't somewhere in the drawings and specs. And then if it is a legitimate change order, is it priced out fair and reasonably? So that's all baked into our OPM basic services. That's nothing that's like an OPM change order. That's not above and beyond what we're.
Yeah, no, I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about somebody coming in at $81 million and thinking to themselves, well, we can actually get that up to 82 million because of change orders of 100,000 here and 100,000 there. And I just don't want to be there. Because then there's also a piece that says that if the bid doesn't come in within that 83 million, that we could have to go back to the town and ask for more money. So I'm just concerned that, when they come in with a bid and it's the one that we choose, that they're not going to use the change order ability to increase by up to $1 million, in that.
100, no, yeah, 100%. And ultimately, so you're referencing the total project budget.
Yeah.
Our construction budget is 66.9 million. So that's the number where we're talking. But ultimately, there's going to be many eyes on the design documents throughout the design process. Besides OPM design review, the commissioning agent's going to do design reviews. MVG and their team are going to do their own red line kind of design reviews. MSBA does their design reviews. So ultimately, the idea is with all these design reviews, by the time we get to bid, the drawings and specs are pretty tight. And those kind of change order opportunities are in terms of design related ones are limited.
Okay,
that's the idea.
Thank you. And I just had just a thought, because when I was going through the MVGs about the plumbing, the different specs and that kind of thing, and I'm just thinking we've got an awful lot of old pipes in town, and I'm wondering if we're if we're looking at so obviously the plumbing in the building is going to be all brand new, but is there going to be a visual to make sure that we're not that the plumbing out to the street is old, that we're going to run into problems? It was just something I thought about because we've had a number of streets that have old plumbing. So I don't know if that's something that we can even address or keep an eye out for. And maybe that's a question for the DPW for Justin. I just, want to
Hi,
make
Mary.
sure. Oh, Justin's good right here. Good.
I
So
can speak to a couple of those things. Sorry, I had some
That's
audio
okay.
issues. In regards to change orders happen and they're usually approved by the owner, project manager, and the team, meaning the owner. So change orders aren't just something the general contractor is going to say, hey, we're going to raise price by doing X, Y, and Z without approval by us. So just know that that's something that we're not 100% going to stop, but is definitely a checks and balances process. And then in regards to water and sewer connections, the capacity of the original schematic plans show relatively little impact to this site, as we already have done that process with both MVG and Colliers in advance. As we go through the process and coordinate with full design and the contractor, we'll dive in a little deeper into what the contingencies, the connection points are, and things of that nature. But ultimately, we're not anticipating anything major.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That was it. That's all I had. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't see any more hands up, Phil.
Oh, sorry. I put mine down. Sorry.
Okay, Mary.
Sorry.
That's all right.
If there wasn't any other, I did have one other. Is the building going to be radon remediation ready? I think we talked about this before. Do they come in like that? Because the building is going to be tighter than what our current building is, and there's been a lot of radon air issues.
Yeah, I would say MVG and their team can look further into that. Like, so the phase we're in now, we're moving into, will be the phase where they kind of look into that detail.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you.
So, Phil, I've got a procedural question. I'm going to ask for a motion in a minute, but I want to make sure that we phrase the motion correctly. In order to move the vote on the closeout for Colliers and for MVG, can we do one motion for both, or do we have to do Colliers and then do MVG?
Yeah, I would do them separate just to be safe.
Okay.
It looks like Ken has his hand raised.
Go ahead, Ken.
There we go. Sorry,
Right.
trying to find these buttons in the dark here. I wanted to give Phil a chance as our owner's project manager. If Phil, you have any comments on these proposals?
No, well, I mean, so both are, if you were to research MSBA's website and look at, kind of market rates, if you will, both Colliers and MVG's fee proposal amounts are of market value for a project of this complexity and whatnot. And then the other thing we look for is just to make sure what we have executed budget wise with the MSBA, it's at that budget number and not above it, and both are. So no, these two proposals aren't any different than we've seen on any other MSBA core program project like this. And services wise, they have to cover every step that they have to cover because it's the MSBA contract terms and so on. So I don't have any concerns with the MVG proposal.
Okay, and there's nothing. I could imagine that MSBA may not have everything in their contract that a particular owner might need, but you think everything that Maynard needs is in this contract?
I do. Yeah. Well, I do. Yes. One and two, we're not able to alter MSBA's designer contract.
Oh,
but
okay.
I don't have I don't want that to be the last thing that's said on this topic. So, but I also don't have a concern that Maynard is going to not get what Maynard needs for this project.
All right. Yeah, that's what I was looking for, Bill, is just to hear from you, your assessment of this.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Good answers, Phil. Thank you.
Yep.
Good question, Ken. I like that. So I'm gonna look for two separate motions. First motion will be for Colliers to vote approval of their DD closeout in the numbers that are on the slide right now, as you see, and were presented by Phil. And then the motion after that will be, after we go through that vote, will then be the same motion, but for MVG for their design development closeout numbers. So could somebody make a motion for Colliers for design development closeout, $2,143,075? Don't all speak up at once.
I can attempt to, and Phil will correct me if I'm wrong. I make a motion that we accept Collier's closeout proposal.
DD to close out.
DD closeout, thank you, in the amount of $2,143,075.
There a second?
Second.
Who was that? I didn't hear who did this. Wayne, thank you. Okay. Okay, I see. All right, I'm talking to myself. Okay, I'm going to go for the vote on this one for Colliers. Justin,
Yes.
Chris, Silva,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Hillary not here, Brian,
Yes.
Mike Stevens,
Yes.
Rob Rillo.
Yes.
Thank you. Jennifer,
Yes.
Wayne,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion now for MVG for the designer, DD closeout, $6,190,000. Would somebody make that motion?
You can make the motion to approve MVG's DD closeout proposal for for $6,190,000.
Would have been better with 2 million. I like that.
Chris is there saying, what?
Yeah.
I'll second that one. This is Nick.
Thank you, Nick. Via roll call, Justin,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Nadia, Brian,
Yes.
Mike Stevens,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Jennifer.
Yes.
Got it. Wayne.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mark Anderson.
Yes.
Anthony.
Yes.
Matthew.
Yes.
Nick.
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
And I didn't call Josh Morse, but I didn't see Josh join either. So I think we're good to go. Both pass unanimously. And we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is, where am I? Motion, MVG consultant submission, review and vote. Everybody did receive a couple of documents indicating a change of a couple of subcontractors. I'll let Chris, I think Chris is going to explain this slide. And then we need to vote on this also, or we can do this with one motion. Go ahead, Chris.
All right, thank you, Jerry. So we have 3 sub-consultants that we're looking to change from the feasibility study phase now into the DD to closeout phase. The first one's electrical and lighting. We originally had O&S Associates included on our proposal when we first interviewed with the group. ONS currently, their workload is just such that they just don't have the time to dedicate what we need for them to do to the project. So we'd like to substitute art engineering. We are working with art engineering, on another project as well. So we're familiar with them. They work seamlessly, coordinate seamlessly with the rest of the team. They will still meet the minority business requirement because both ONS and art engineering are minority-owned businesses. We feel very comfortable that they can provide the services that we need for the Maynard project. They will handle our electrical lighting. They will also handle some of our associated work with technologies and security. Security, the company that we were originally carrying was Ross and Barzuni, DVS. The rep that we work with, Al Palumbo, we've worked with him for the last dozen or so years on projects. He has changed companies to Sentinel Consulting, and because of our our relationship with him, and we're comfortable with what he brings to the table from security standpoint, we want to again keep him as our prime consultant. So we're looking to change from Ross Barzuni or Barzini to Sentinel Consulting to maintain those same services and continuity in our security design. And then lastly, accessibility. Deb Bryan Associates was originally carried. Deb has since retired, I think, during the feasibility study phase. So we're looking to change to KMA Associates, which we've used on another project as well. So those are the three consultants we're looking to change, and the reasons are we feel very valid for that. So any questions?
I'll jump in. So we've worked with ART Engineering on a bunch of jobs, no concerns there. And Sentinel and KMA, we looked into them. Colliers doesn't have any concerns with these changes.
Any relation, Phil, to Al
No,
Palumbo?
no relation. I was
had to
waiting
say
for that
something.
question. Yeah, no relation. Matt has his hand up.
Yeah. So for what it's worth, I've also worked with ART and KMA, and I've found them to be both excellent at what they do. Did have a question. Will ART be doing fire alarm as well, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Any more questions? Mary?
Just because, Phil, we had the conversation about the biodirectional communication. Is that also part of the fire alarm stuff?
Yes.
That'll be part of the ART scope. Yep.
Perfect. All right,
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Mary, that did come up in our initial meeting with the fire chief, and so yeah, that's
Great.
that's in all of our projects.
Perfect. Thank you.
Nick?
Probably a question for Phil. Since MBE and WBE goals were mentioned, is there any sort of tracking or like target we have to hit? That's something we have to submit. Is that something you guys do? And I know you're mentioning as we move laterally to some of these places, is there something where if we continue to go on, we don't hit a goal, is there a penalty?
So the first question, yes. So part of MBG's DD to close out fee proposal is there's and I'll go to it right now, is their MBWBE breakdown. Right here. And yes, they're state, and they're called goals, state goals that the Occupational Supplier Diversity Office puts on state funded projects. MVG's proposal surpasses both the MBE and WBE goals. I don't have them in front of me. But ultimately, I already did the math, and I know they surpassed the goals we got to hit. And then now the last question of like, if a designer falls short, so when we get to construction, the contractors will have their requirements. What would happen is at the procurement phase. So this is the procurement for the designer. If we were to see that they fell short, we would have that conversation with you all as the building committee and say, okay, they're short by 0.5% on MBE.
what do we want to do? Do we want to make them look for another MBE firm, or do we want to accept that? Because there's a process that I would then go back to the OSD, explain, where the numbers are coming in at, and request that we be allowed for this project to have our goals. So for MBE drop by 0.5%. So there's a process we callers would follow up with OSD. And again, same goes for the construction process.
Yeah, I was more thinking about construction, and that's
Yep.
way more moving parts. This is much easier to one sheet, do the tab, back of a
Yep.
napkin. I was worried about
Yep.
going forward. So okay, good.
Yeah, and then in construction they'll have a breakdown per company, and in their certified payroll they'll have the breakdown of minority and women workforce participation and all that.
Any additional questions, discussion, anybody? If there are none, I would certainly entertain a motion to accept the slide that's up here right now, basically, the 3 sub-consultant changes that have been put forth by Colliers and MVG. So again, I would accept a motion for that, and we'll do one vote for all 3.
I make a motion that we accept the MVG sub-consultant 3
Substitution.
substitutions, sorry. Substitutions for the 3, the electrical, lighting, the security, and accessibility.
Do a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Matt. You're on a roll tonight, Mary. You've done a great job at all these motions. Excellent.
Oh, it's just because nobody else is don't move. Everybody's quiet.
Well, I didn't go that far. Anyway,
Mary's moving tonight.
She is. Okay, let's vote on this. Justin.
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
Hillary's not here. Brian.
Yes.
Mike Stevens.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Jennifer.
Yes.
Thank you. Wayne.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mark Anderson.
Yes.
Anthony.
Yes.
Matthew.
Yes.
Nick.
Yes.
Ken. Ken still on?
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry about that.
I gotta find those buttons. I know it's tough sometimes, at the end of the day. Next item, Phil, I think is new and other business.
Yeah, so we don't have anything for new or other business outside of penciling in the next SBC meeting. So right now we're showing January 8th for the next meeting. Does that work for folks?
Which is fine with me. I don't know about others. Let me just double check again.
Katie has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Katie.
Hi. So I had at our last FinCom meeting, a question was brought up, and it may have been discussed, and I just couldn't recall. And I wanted to bring back an answer for our meeting tonight. But Peter had asked, I know this is a little off topic, but the MSBA funding I know increased, which is great for construction. Is that possible for that ever to happen again, or are we kind of where we're going to be at as far as reimbursement?
Yeah, I would say it won't. My gut tells me it won't happen again. So we're going to go out to bid in essentially a year. And I don't see the market doing anything crazy such that MSBA is going to feel like they got to do another adjustment. So I would say, this most recent adjustment will be the last.
So it was market based essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
On an optimistic note, Katie, if
the
bids come in a substantial amount under budget, which we've had several projects of ours have done that, then that goes to your share of the cost. You wouldn't have to pay. In other words, you've already authorized it by your vote, but you don't have to spend it. So We did one in Wareham where they called it a local windfall. It was about $12 million under. I don't expect anything like that. And that was a much larger project, but recent ones that we've had have been a few million under, although the last couple of years have been tough.
Right.
I don't know what you've been seeing, Phil, but I'm seeing it soften up a little bit here.
We are too. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm hopeful that because we put those numbers in, the estimators have put them in with a lot of, CYA,
Right.
make sure we don't get caught without enough money. So that's a good thing because when it comes in, it'll be a local windfall for you.
Right. We take it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the optimistic
That's good to know
side.
too. Yeah.
But we can't count on it, but I'm hopeful.
Okay. Thank you both.
Yep.
Ken, you can hand up.
I did. Thanks, Gary. I was wondering, so I know looking at the schedule on the proposals, there's a whole lot of design development work happening, I guess, after tonight with the notice to proceed. Will we be looking at a progress set anytime between now and the next meeting or around the time of the next meeting? When should we look for that?
Well, I can tell you that it's going to take about 4 months or so to get the DD set complete. And there is a submittal that goes to MSBA, but I believe, Phil, that it is approved by the committee first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then
So we stepped through that last building committee meeting, but
yeah.
Ken, we're showing so we're going to get the design development progress set to the building committee, call it early April, seeking your approval on it. When I say on it, not just the drawings and the specs, but also the cost estimate process that we're going to step you through, the value management process we're going to step you through, seeking your approval on that April 15th.
Yep.
And then after that, you're going to have a 60% construction document progress set. That approval will be in July. And then after that, you got a 90% construction document progress set. That approval will be in October.
And we go out to bid in November, by end of November, early December.
Perfect.
Looks like there's estimating feedback along the way too, which is nice.
Yeah,
Yes.
you get three more estimates.
Everybody good on the issues we've had tonight? I think everything.
If Ken got the emails, I know we got a lot of them this week, but there's definitely the notes, the slides from last week have a great page-and-a-half breakdown of all the steps, Ken. So you can see very much along the way what we do, what MSBA is. It's all right there.
Yeah.
Matt, hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. So I had a question or maybe a request for the design team, maybe for the next meeting. I've seen a number of projects just recently get into big trouble during construction because of design errors made during the design phase. And I think about things like, for instance, an electrical engineer that's sitting in a company that's different than the mechanical and the plumbing engineers and so on. And you start to wonder, how's that coordination happening? I wonder if you could maybe for next meeting give us a description of what the coordination and the quality control process will be as you get into detailed design. Like, will you be having design reviews on a certain basis? What kind of software will be used for 3D coordination of systems and so on? I think that would all be useful just to understand that there's a comprehensive program that you're going to use to make sure that when we get to construction, for example, I had a project that I was doing a small scope on, but there was an issue with a different scope where they needed to replace some equipment at the very end. And with all the lead time issues we have, as well as the high cost of everything right now, you're running into issues where a project should be ending, but it's actually getting extended for 6 months because that's how long it takes to get some piece of electrical equipment or something like that. And we obviously don't want to get to that point. So I think really hammering in on the coordination now and dealing with avoidance of design errors, I think is going to be important for this project.
I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. The issue of long lead time items, we try to identify those during the design period. If it looks like something's going to be more than a year or a year and a half, even some of them, then we suggest that the owner purchase certain equipment. ahead of time, and then keep it in storage, and the engineer, whether it's a mechanical engineer or electrical, I don't know, switch gear or whatever, they are then get incorporated in the project later. So that's how we've dealt with long lead items. In terms of coordination, that's an ongoing thing, and that's what I call the invisible part of the work. People can produce a lot of drawings, but if they're not coordinated, wait till the contractors get a hold of them. They will find every little thing. So over my nearly 40 years now, we design our construction documents are put together to make it easy to build and try to avoid any of those conflicts between things. And that's just a lot of coordination during the design, and particularly putting it all together near the end, the last 3 months, really coordinating everything. I can't say that we've ever had a perfect set, but I can tell you that our average change orders, not related to owner requests or discovered conditions, is less than 0.5%. That's pretty consistent on most of our projects.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, Frank. So Matt, on a regular, we use Revit software to do our building design, as does our consultants. So we're producing a 3D model of the architecture, the MEP system structure, et cetera. So we hold regular coordination meetings weekly, every other week, depending on the stage of the progress. We pass around the model updates on a regular basis. We make sure, for example, you mentioned mechanical and electrical, that when the mechanical engineer has located their equipment, whether it be rooftop, large pieces, or smaller controls, et cetera, those are highlighted or clouded and sent over to the electrical engineer so they can pick up the electrical requirements, right? So the entire team is in constant coordination, start to finish, as Frank would say. It's behind the scenes, regular meetings. The team that I have that will be working on the Maynard project is the same team that we just did another project recently. So everybody is familiar working with each other. We know the process. We're making sure we're using lessons learned from our projects to incorporate anything we catch, make sure it doesn't happen again. But I'm sure, Matt, as you know, being in the business, right? There's a lot of information from a lot of people, and we're going to just get it down to the very nitty gritty as best we can.
Yeah, Revit's great if you have the right things showing up in the view you're looking at.
Right.
So another tool that we look at is clash avoidance. I don't know if you have any
separate
software. Yep. Okay.
The other thing too, in terms of when the contractor is involved, remember what we're putting together is a diagrammatic representation of what's to be built, and we don't tell them how to build it. That's means and methods, but we know what we want it to be. But it's with all the various disciplines and components that are in the project. How do you make sure that everything is clear? Well, we have a lot of good stuff in our specifications as well to clarify. Now, one of the strongest ones that comes up now and then, what if there's a differentiation between what's on the drawings, what's on the specifications, and things like that. So we have our specifications are very clear that what is required by one is so it's required by all documents. If there's a difference between one and the other, the contractor owns the greater quantity or the greater value, not the lesser. So if there's one that has 15 light fixtures and one that has 14 light fixtures for some reason, the one that you own, the one that's 15. So that's very clear, and that's an important part of how you communicate with contractors is the rules, I call them, which is the general conditions for construction. And so we, over the years, have really added quite a bit to that from our experience. We call lessons learned, but we make sure that those kinds of things are covered. And we're lucky in the sense that we have, there's a few contractors that follow our work a lot. They're almost always bidding on it. There's about 6 or 7 of them. Fontaine Brothers, Brake Brothers, also several others out in Western Massachusetts as well. J&J, several of them. And they bid our projects. I did my own kind of survey of 5 of them. At one time, why do they bid our projects? Why? And they said, because our projects are easy to build. That's number one. They're contractors. They want to get in. And secondly, we don't use sort of hard to get materials like sophisticated panels and things like that that are very difficult, have long lead times, don't allow them to close the buildings in quickly. So we don't use them except in accent areas where they don't hold up the enclosure of the building. So it's things like that that we've learned over the years that make them know that they can bid our projects and still make money. I mean, that's what they're there for. So we're pretty happy about that and hope to pass that on in this project as well.
Excellent, great, excellent points you brought up, Matt, and thank you very much, Frank, for the more detailed explanation of things. And also, I think we all need to keep in mind too, the commissioning is a process.
That's correct.
It starts during the design phase. So if commissioning is done properly, commissioning can pick up some of the differences. So, I think we're covered. And again, I hope we're covered. But great question. It's
going to be very important too, Jerry, and with this the geothermal system that the commissioning people be fully engaged. And their job is to make sure that what is designed and what is built are, synonymous. They are the same thing and they operate the way their design intent has them. So, that's an important part. MSBA hires the commissioning agent for each project. And they're pretty good. I mean, they're all the big companies. A lot of them do. Some of the engineering firms as well. So,
perfect. Let's see, Phil. Do you have anything else? Is there anything else under new business? We've established a date of January 8th, 5 p.m.
Yep, that's it.
I think that's it. I don't have anything newsworthy or entertaining. I think the next thing I'm going to ask is probably a question of Mary. If Mary would make just one more motion tonight, just one. This is it. I won't ask.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Excellent job. Good job. Would there be a second? Would there be a second for that?
Second.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, via roll call, let's take care of this. Justin.
Yes.
Chris. Chris is still here?
Yep.
Oh, there you go. Greg.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
Hillary, no. Brian.
Yes.
Thank you. Mike Stevens. Robert Lowe.
Yes.
Jennifer.
Yes.
Wayne.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mark Anderson.
Yes.
Anthony.
Yes.
Matthew.
Yes.
Nick.
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Charles. I saw you on here. Oh, maybe he left. All right. Rob Savoy, I saw you here.
Yes.
Perfect.
I'm mute.
Katie.
Can I say yes?
You can say yes.
Sure. Yes.
It's a courtesy yes. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Meeting is officially adjourned. You could stop recording now, Phil, if you want.